Lovely.
Okay, thank you everybody. We're here today with Swanky Media Agency, Dan and Matt. And, you know, we associate the terms advanced technology and online largely with retail. But Matt and Dan today are going to talk to us about how those, the advanced technology can be applied within other circumstances as well. So over to you, Dan and Matt.
Lovely, thank you. So should I share my screen? Is that going to work seamlessly? Let's give it a go. There we go. How's that looking for you?
That's great.
Lovely, perfect. So some quick introductions first. I'm Dan, founder and MD of Swanky, and you know, I described myself yesterday actually, sort of prepping for this as a sort of classical geek. Anything that I can get into, any kind of technology that I can get into and understand and take apart and play with and hack. That's kind of my idea of heaven and the thing I like to do in my spare time. Disruption for me is really sort of modus operandi. It's what I most enjoy doing, I suppose. Matt, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, sure. I'm Matt. I'm the other founder and creative director at Swanky. Background in print design, music, all sorts. I studied languages at university, French and German, and yeah, have translated endless financial documents for Reuters, and then moved into business with Dan, where we kind of very quickly figured out that there was a large opportunity within e-commerce and data-backed design, which a lot of agencies, creative agencies, tend to miss out on. So to give you a little bit of our story, we were founded in 2010. 2012, we became a certified Shopify experts agency, which means that we are kind of on board with the fastest growing e-commerce platform in the world. They, during this time, have actually had, over this last quarter, had 65% uplift in new business registrations on the platform, which would suggest that this is it's the platform for entrepreneuring. But we also have an accreditation which makes us Shopify Plus experts, which means that we're qualified at the highest level of the platform to integrate systems and solutions for enterprise level companies. So we're talking probably from 2 million to 500 million. Some of the companies that are on the platform are turning over annually. We have a team of about 40 who are distributed over UK and Australia. Australia we launched last year. And they're kind of experiencing the same level of growth as us, if not more, which is over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had 70% year on year. And it's just a reflection of the market, is what we see. The platform has been growing, Shopify as a platform has been growing around 60 to 70% year on year in pretty much every territory, every continent. And yeah, we kind of took the opportunity with Australia. Aside from having an Australian employee who was itching to get back and get some sunshine, we saw the opportunity there to be a 24/7 agency, providing excellent support around the clock. And so like I said, we started off in web design generally, but then realized that the e-commerce opportunity was too good to miss. With the Shopify Plus, we were one of the first 3 agencies in Europe to be given that status, and it was largely based on consultative, is that a word? It is a word. Ability in defining platform solutions. There were bigger agencies at the time, the other 2 who got that status, but we we like to look at things in a different way, and like Dan said, that kind of disruptive approach is something that we like to take to all our projects. But yeah, we specialize in kind of the data analysis that leads into the project. We specialize in the solutions like provision. We do app development, we do all sorts. We do site building, we do performance marketing, conversion rate optimization, and yeah, an end-to-end agency.
All the jazz. That is yeah, that's sort of all we're going to say about us, just to give you a bit of context, I suppose, on sort of where we're coming from. Look, there's no hiding the fact that what we know best is e-commerce and retail, but actually there are some principles, there are some really big important principles at play, which are reflected in e-commerce and digital retail. And the retail sector as a whole, actually, whether brick and mortar and digital, but are actually affecting pretty much every industry, every vertical, and so on. So we're going to kind of bring what we see of those factors, of those kind of that context in the world and so on now. From our perspective, and we're really going to leave it to you to sort of to read between the lines and figure out what that means, in whatever industry sector and so on you're in, and hopefully sort of bring a bit of insight that will help to help you to do the problem solving, I suppose, with a little bit more kind of context on where we see technology at the moment. So first thing to kind of to address is sort of where we are right now, because obviously we all know about the situation in terms of COVID, and we will briefly mention the sort of impact of that, but more urgently, I suppose, in a way for retail, because hopefully the COVID impact is transitory. 29% or so store closings were announced in 2019 compared to 2018. E-commerce is less than 5% of overall consumer packaged goods sales, but direct-to-consumer e-commerce accounts for about 40% of the sales growth in the sector. So that's brands. We're going to talk about a few of those brands, those direct-to-consumer brands, in a minute. That D2C is a particularly disruptive factor at the moment. 87% of retail brands plan to launch a direct-to-consumer channel in the future. 23% will do so in the next 12 months, and 90% of consumers would rather buy direct from a brand than from through a distributor or supplier. So in other words, when you, as an example of a sort of a D2C situation, you go into Boots, you've got hundreds of different brands on the shelves. Well, almost every one of those brands has some kind of direct-to-consumer offering, where they're not just selling through Boots, they're not just selling through Amazon, they have their own site where they're able to do that. And actually that's a huge shift, not just in retail, but it's a huge shift in consumer behavior. Both, I would submit, both in directly in the consumer buying from business, but also in the business-to-business purchasing behavior. We are becoming less comfortable with long, complex supply chains as technology is compressing the time it takes to deliver products and services. We want to talk to the people immediately responsible for the next phase of delivery. We want to understand exactly what's happening at every phase of manufacturing and resource acquisition and so on. So this is one of the core principles, and we think it's kind of represented in that D2C transition particularly. COVID-19 obviously has driven a massive shift in consumer behavior, and this is pretty unique to online retail. Some consumable categories are up to 100% online. Some are not, though. There are many that are down considerably. More generally, a fair principle to apply here is that if you're not online, customers still want your products and services, but they may not be able to find them at the moment. And if that situation remains for long, then they might seek alternatives. Again, this is connected to that, having your brand, your product, your service available at any time to a customer. Okay, so those sort of that context in mind, we've kind of put together a few thoughts on a few retail brands that are embracing this new context, both the kind of both the immediate COVID situation, but also the broader kind of trend in consumer and business purchasing behaviour. And those brands are Simba, who make and manufacture mattresses, Huel, who make meal replacement products, which you could, if you were so inclined, you could drink Huel every day for every meal and not touch anything else, and not just survive but thrive, in their words. And then Friction Free Shaving, who are a women's razor subscription brand. It's worth mentioning there are also direct-to-consumer offerings for things like home improvements, paint, home paint product purchasing, a sort of a very broad range. It's not just these sort of more traditional, in some ways more traditional products that are kind of being disrupted by a direct-to-consumer model. So Simba's really interesting because they were founded in 1979. They are as traditional as a traditional business could be. They have originally were weavers, I suppose you'd say, creating the fabrics and sheets and so on for mattresses. Indeed, before the actual mattress, before the kind of shaping and so on of the product. And then they got into, actually creating the kind of the end product. And then finally, quite a lot more recently, decided why not make the whole mattress. And then in 2012, decided to go direct to consumer. Since that point, they've sold about 50 million mattresses in 35 countries. So it's unlocked an incredible breadth of market for them. Huel was founded in 2014. We launched a subscription service with them in 2016, so that people got their products, their Huel, automatically each month, each week, and so on. And again, 50 million meals shipped, and those Huel products are sold in 80 countries. And then Friction Free Shaving are also a very newly founded business. They're the UK's most popular direct-to-consumer razor product. They've had extremely rapid growth, and they're UK focused for now, but there is nothing in the technology stack, in the production, manufacturing, fulfillment, and so on that would prevent them from broadening out into many more countries when the time is right. So we think that Simba is a great example of owning the product, and I'd just encourage you, while you sort of think about this, to think about your product, whether that is getting a shipping container from one country to another, whether that is building a house, whether that is indeed shipping a razor or a mattress, or manufacturing any of these products. You have a product, and you have an opportunity to communicate the reason for that product being made, the craftsmanship and so on behind it, and the qualities of it through the web in a way that you cannot do through more traditional sort of marketing and consumer communication methods. So
Dan, sorry to interrupt. We've had quite an interesting question come through.
No problem. Yeah.
And this is about, very similar to what you were just saying then, from a traditional point of view. If you've got somebody like a law firm, you know, who've got, you know, very definitive sort of products and services, you know, obviously a traditional route for them is very sort of, you know, very much high street or whatever. So, you know, how would they make the move to, you know, I mean, obviously not an e-commerce product site like this, but make that move online?
So yeah, so hopefully this will give you a few ideas for that. Fundamentally, I would say that it's about identifying who the customer is, and then ensuring that you are communicating, that you're addressing their needs, that you are communicating the value of your product or service, and you know, ideally, if you can, providing through technology, although it's not an essential, you know, it's an added bonus, providing through technology, through the web, through apps and so on, providing a layer of additional quality of service or service that wouldn't be possible without technology. But fundamentally, it's about knowing who that customer is. And the web, when we get to friction-free shaving, I'll kind of talk about how technology can enable you to do that in a, you know, particularly meaningful way. Yeah, hopefully we can certainly circle back round if that's not more fully answered as I sort of go through these other examples. We'll yeah, come back to it. So Simba, I'll just play the video here. This is Simba's product page on their website. Now, if you imagine how mattresses used to be sold, you'd go into a showroom, you'd probably meet a salesperson. They might hand you a brochure, they might kind of, you know, try and sort of smooth talk you a little bit, you know, direct you towards the next most expensive thing and then the next most expensive mattress. And it's a sort of, it's a process that actually, you know, you might think, how on earth would anybody buy a mattress if they haven't had a chance to go into a sales room, go somewhere and try it? But actually, you know, there's hundreds of millions of pounds now transacting through mattress, these direct-to-consumer mattress brands, and no one, not a single buyer of these, unless they've, you know, maybe experienced it in a sort of in a travel lodge, perhaps, who are now starting to do partnerships and things. No one tries the mattresses first. They're getting their information about the product, the innovation that goes into the product, the design that goes into the product, the manufacturing, the testing. They're getting all of that information from the web. There can be a lot more information because you can have an infinite number of pages about the product, and believe me, customers are interested. They do want to get into the detail. And actually, the web is far better in this case than a brochure that you might be handed by a salesperson in a shop. It's also an opportunity to appeal to customers' interest in genuine quality and sustainability and value and so on. You can really connect on a kind of per customer basis through technology that we call it personalization, that allows you to recognize where that customer's from, whether they visited the site before, how long they've spent on the site before. It might even give you certain demographics about that customer. And you can then shape the content of the site and the experience to really address the sort of the key concerns around that product. Let's see. Yeah, it's also an opportunity to invite conversation. So whereas normally, you know, it's tough for a brand, for a service provider and so on to receive feedback. It can feel quite clunky, quite difficult to garner feedback. There's a much more natural feedback loop when you are, you know, maybe emailing someone a few days later just to say, you know, how did you get on with the purchase? How's it looking? Are you enjoying it? And that can include actually sort of more meaningful company, company feedback. So how was the shipping experience? Did you talk to customer services? Actually, you know, we can get a bit frustrated sometimes. We can kind of say, it's a bit naff. You always get pop-ups on websites asking, you know, why you're there and what you're doing. And so on. But actually, customers do want to provide, you know, potential customers do want to provide feedback. And I expect you can remember a time when actually you were quite pleased to see that pop up, so you could tell someone what you thought, and it might not have been positive, but it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity that and it is an opportunity that a lot of people take, and that's something that sort of isn't available to you. Those kind of feedback mechanisms just aren't available in other contexts. Certainly not with the same sort of breadth of access and the database to store it all instantly and so on, and retrieve it and report on it. So Huel, we think, is a great example of owning the brand. Huel are really committed to product, of course, and they're really committed to understanding the customer. This is just the About Us. All the pages related to About Us, and then when you get onto the About Us page, you'll see the length of it based on that scroll bar over there. It just goes on and on and on. Sections on what they believe in, with quotes, awards they've won, rude statements in their offices, their founder, how to become a hooligan, learn more, and then their Instagram and so on. This, yeah, great. It's talking to a particular audience. It's talking to a particular demographic in some cases. But actually, this is true of almost any consumer. And remember that business consumers are just consumers too. Businesses buy from people, not other businesses. And everybody really wants to understand the brand that they're buying from. They want to understand the values that business holds. They want to understand how those values, how the sort of the original kind of idea, that spark that created the business in the first instance, how that has kind of fed into the DNA of the business as a whole, and its service offering and so on. This example from Huel kind of shows, actually, again, the web, you've got infinite space, you have feedback, you can ask people and create a feedback loop much shorter than if you were sort of doing this through word of mouth or face-to-face sort of verbal trade relationships. Yeah, you can begin to present really a level of information to customers that is not available or probably not read by all but the sort of the most committed and most interested, unless you provide a way that they can navigate deep into it.
Can just add on a brand level, and we're saying here that they're owning the brand, but one of the things that's made them huge and has enabled their growth so quickly is that they have allowed their customers to own the brand. I mean, that's everything from the visuals, as it's super vanilla in terms of the approach. It's it's basic. It's almost like a fundamental elemental thing that they've got going on. But what they have done from the off is invited their customers to feedback on the actual product and its ingredients and the quality of it and the packaging and everything. So they have very much just put the whole product into their customer's hand and just say, we care about what you think, give us feedback, like you're saying, Dan, and we will shape the product to be the very best product that you want. And I mean, it helped that a lot of the people who were interested in it in the early days were dietitians and triathletes and so on. So what they've ended up is a very very well cultivated product, but it has been largely crowdfunded as a brand and established.
Yeah. And then finally, friction-free shaving, we think is a great example of owning the customer. And this is where we kind of get into maybe some of that stuff that addresses sort of what a bank or an insurance provider and so on can do. So this is the home page of friction-free shaving, and as you scroll down, you can see those sort of those comments and notes, the sort of the kind of sales points. And then over on Peach Points, you've got this loyalty program, which allows customers to kind of benefit from referring their colleagues and friends and so on to the friction-free subscription service. So because friction-free shaving is really interested in who their customer are, they make a lot of effort through social media, through surveying, through that loyalty subscription program and so on, to understand their interests, their likes, dislikes, the other kinds of products that they're wanting to buy, and so on, and then speak that back to them really on the homepage with statements around the values of the brand, and how the products are manufactured and so on. And they're using both rational and emotional communication. We've got nice little tick boxes next to each of the things that they think matter. Some of them are largely irrelevant, really, but in the sort of in a more traditional business context, but they're really important to friction-free customers, and so they're something that comes right up near the top of the page. And that loyalty program allows those same customers who might normally just have their subscription and they'd stick around for a long time, it allows them to engage with the brand in a way that's significantly deeper. They can actually be rewarded for referring their friends to friction-free. And then the program sort of, is a formalized way essentially of rewarding those customers for sharing the brand and so on. Once customers are inside a friction-free subscription, they then get exclusive access to a whole range of other products that are just not available on the storefront. And this creates a really sticky, kind of service offering that okay, they might get done with the razors at some point. Maybe they'll find a better razor, but actually, they then, the conversation in their head goes, well, then I can't access all these other services, all these other products that are that I really do like and that are discounted and so on and so forth. So they're creating really a walled garden that makes it that makes a really sticky sort of service offering that people don't want to churn away from. Now we sort of mentioned that personalization aspect a little earlier. That there are a few techniques that friction-free and other brands like them can use, and this is sort of, in many ways it's kind of it's not being used anywhere near as much as it could be, because the technology is actually relatively mature, but the understanding of it is quite low. And that is personalization and segmentation. So let's sort of take a bank as an example. Right now, if you go to your bank's homepage, chances are you will see exactly the same thing that every other visitor to that page sees. However, if that bank were investing in personalization technology, they would actually already know who you are based upon your IP address, based upon perhaps the device that you previously visited on, perhaps based on location and things like that. They would know if you visited before and what pages you'd visited, and they would be able to tailor the content of that homepage to directly address the sort of products and services that you're most likely to be visiting them to access on this occasion. So the sort of I'll step back one slide for now. So for example, if I go as a business customer, if I go onto the HSBC homepage and search around a bit, look for a COVID business loan, whatever it is, it might be that the first time I visited that homepage, it was just a standard homepage giving me interest rates, giving me a mortgage advert and things like that. But the next time I come to that homepage, it gives me it gives me a loan, a business loan advert, or some other related business service. That's very, very powerful. That immediately gets customers deeper into the experience, and allows them to sort of find the products and service that they want faster. But actually, it only starts there because once you know who that customer is, you can feed that same process into your email communications and other omni-channel communications. So if so, you also know who they are on Facebook. You might have their phone number, so their WhatsApp, and you might have other ways to communicate with them that just continue to build a picture of who that customer is. And the more full that picture is, the more you know about their interest in your brand, in particular products and particular services. And you can then tailor your email communications. You can then tailor, if you wanted, print communications that go to those customers, specific to their individual needs. So it's a really powerful system. It's called personalization, and that's one of the ways and one of the principles, I suppose, of how successful businesses on the web are addressing customers. Clicker's gone. There we go. So, what does it kind of look like, I guess, because it's all very well to sort of look at a kind of digitally native D2C brand like Huel, and friction free and so on, but there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of producers, manufacturers, service providers, and so on, who have been previously selling to retail partners, selling actually to B2B distributors, and haven't had their own, or indeed, if you're sort of providing a banking service, insurance service, training services, these might all have previously and traditionally they have all been provided through businesses who are set up specifically for those functions, and they're kind of the face, and there's a business sitting behind the scenes who's doing the actual product and service, and that's completely changed. So Quicks is an amazing local business to us, actually, who may have spotted them in supermarkets or local delicatessen, who produce fantastic cheddar cheese and a few other nice cheeses, they were, until a year and a half ago or so, they were almost entirely a producer selling to distributors and supermarkets and so on. But about a year and a half ago, they decided actually they wanted to begin selling direct to consumer, and so they built this fantastic site. And actually, just the very first example here of, Mary, the founder, is able to write a letter directly to, the people who most love her products, and put it on the homepage so that they can hear what's on her mind, in this case, in terms of COVID-19, and the impact that it's having on them. And that was something that just wasn't previously available to them. And of course, they now have a channel where they're selling, a percentage of their products direct to consumers. There's a long way for them to go. So through a combination of sort of marketing services, through conversion rate optimization, through personalization, and so on, we will gradually increase those, the mix of services and the sort of the volume of customers that are going through the site and so on. Hello. I have a cat. Yeah, it's a sort of very good start, and actually this approach for them has cushioned them quite a bit from the worst sort of ravages of COVID, because they have a kind of baseline of access, to customers that they wouldn't have had if they didn't have this service. So here's a quote from an economist who's probably got a better idea of what's going to happen next than any of us. He says, what will happen as the lockdowns get lifted and recovery ensues following a period of massive fiscal and monetary expansion? The answer, as in the aftermath of wars, will be a surge in inflation with reduced demand and restricted capital. When businesses, when individuals, when people have to make tougher purchasing decisions, they seek more information, and they seek more validation that business, that product, that service is exactly what they need. They are more cautious buyers. They are slower buyers. They require more touch points before they make a purchase, almost sort of equivalent to sort of the scale of the purchase. And the web, technology and so on allows businesses to scale the quantity of information, the quality of information, and the number of touch points, the number of opportunities that a customer has to validate a purchase without a sort of equivalent scaling in the cost and complexity of their sales processes, because you're leveraging automation and technology to more directly and for a lower cost speak to each customer in exactly the way they'd like to. So we think that principle, those principles of using the web in that way and using technology, customer understanding in a smart, effective way is going to help a lot of businesses, whatever they sell. It's going to help a lot of businesses to weather this well and to grow well. Let me click through. This is only representative of a store build. So just to give you a very rough sense, if you were creating a services site, if you were creating a training site, we'd love to sort of have a conversation and help you out, but we wouldn't be the people doing the work. We might be able to help you find another agency that can do it. If you're creating a product site, then this is roughly how long it takes, and this is kind of the process. And actually, it's not, if you already have a site, it's not that dissimilar a process to improve and significantly kind of refresh that site either. So you generally go through a research and discovery period, which involves that process of getting that initial understanding of the customer, understanding all the tooling and appropriate platforms and so on that are going to be needed to serve that experience. Then you move into design based upon that careful understanding of the customer. And some agencies work only on design, and they complete that entire process, and then they move over to development. And some agencies can, like us, work in a more agile way, where we sort of produce a section of the design, a certain number of pages, begin developing those, then they move on to more pages and develop those sort of sequentially. So, which speeds things up a little bit. And then you'll move into sort of user acceptance testing to make sure that sort of the site is ready, sort of as your customers would expect it to be, in the state that your customers would expect it to be at the end. So, it's generally sort of 16 weeks, something like that. Sprints here represent 2 weeks each. And that's the kind of timeline that you'd be looking at. And like I say, it's not, I would encourage you, I suppose, to, if you were considering a refresh, a significant improvement to your site experience, not to restrict your prospects or the agency that you're working with to a tight timeline and a sort of limited approach to that process. A good agency that understands your customers and your product and your service and so on can genuinely do a huge amount to address that and increase the efficacy, I suppose, of your web presence. And then bear in mind that actually now technology, particularly web technology, works through multiple platforms, all being kind of knitted together. So some of the examples that I've sort of talked through today include dynamic yield, which is a personalization platform. That's the thing that kind of knows that, you know, if it's raining where the person who's visiting your fashion website you know, is visiting from, then it will put umbrellas on the homepage. If they've come several times before and they've only bought blue stuff, then it's going to put blue umbrellas on the homepage, and so on. That's a personalization platform. Gorgeous is a customer service platform. Akendo is a reviews platform. Recharge is a subscription platform. You have a similar kind of ecosystem for lots of different types of tooling that you might, for the services that you might need to offer through your site, depending upon, you know, how you want to serve them. Okay, that is it. Very very briefly, I think. Although I'm sure it probably feels like we rambled on. Yeah, do welcome any questions that you have.
Okay, thanks, Dan. That was interesting. We have Paul Whitnall on the line here. Paul, did you want to say a few words? I'll unmute you. You're unmuted now.
Ah, good. I'm kind of zoomed out of it today, as everybody else. But I've just come off a very interesting conversation in Ireland in terms of we're talking about what the relevance in terms of what we're doing, particularly now. And this platform is providing that opportunity to speak in terms of the relevance of BITA. And I suppose, you know, BITA was described this morning as an active pathway service. And what you have just displayed there plays right into that. It's fulsome of vital information. And what I would like to ask everybody to do is to, you know, go back on these videos, sit down and review them in more detail, because the advice that you've given and what you've displayed is of vital importance and relevance to people now as we go into a new world. And businesses, generally speaking, have to, you know, investigate further now in the context of the emotions and connectivity with their customer. And you've given us some fantastic tips there in terms of things to look at. So thank you very much for that. And we can take questions when obviously we've run out of time today, because this is we normally stick to a kind of 40-minute regime, but we'll send you on the questions, and perhaps we'll have another session fairly soon with more develops with Swanky. So thank you, guys.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully what we'll do is we'll send the questions on, and then maybe you can add them to the video because they were relevant to this session. So I'll send them on.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for having us.